Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 7th and final session of the TQS Business Standards webinar. We are discussing today personnel management standards, and as I mentioned, this is our last of this series. And also, if you are new to the series, welcome. If you've been with us for the long haul, welcome back. And of course, just note that we have updated the webinar template to reflect the marketing campaign that was released at Town Hall in May of earlier this year, May of 2017. All right, so we'll just get right into it. So today's agenda, we will have introductions. We will highlight some new requirements, review the personnel management standards, general tips, resources available, and questions. There's actually no real-life example, but tons of tools and tips. And I can also, for those of you joining who are going through reaccreditation next year, I can give you a little bit of insight. We'll have some more formal insights as we continue through the process, but just some things I'm seeing as they pertain to the standards for personnel management. So let's keep going here. So the objectives in updating the standards. So this was done in January of 2016 during a town hall, and we moved from what we dubbed TQS 1.0 to TQS 2.0, and these were basically those reasons. So we wanted to implement some lessons learned from TQS 1.0, mitigate risk, protect our brand, and then adapt to changes in our operating environment. So you've seen this slide before if you've joined us in previous webinars, but this is always just important for us to reiterate, because as with all things when going through reaccreditation and even accreditation, we always go back to intent. What is the intent that you're hoping to achieve through the standard or through the documentation that you're uploading? It's not just checking boxes and meeting the standard, but it's also about, really making you and helping you be the best affiliate you can be. So that's why we always put this slide here. Great. So another thing that I just kind of wanted to touch on very quickly before we reach the objectives is just that because we're discussing personnel management, really it's important to make sure that at your affiliate you have the right people, as we say, on the bus. And that, again, you are, as if you're an ED or a program manager, that you're really leading to, to make your staff be the best staff it can be. And I think that we have hopefully gathered some tools, templates, and resources for you to help you achieve that. So to dive right into the objectives, we want to understand the personnel management standards, what's new and what has changed, and you'll actually be surprised that there's really only one new standard. So that's kind of great, because you probably are already doing a lot of these things, and so there won't be too many changes or things that you have to do to get up to TQS 2.0. We also want to understand the indicators, and then of course know where tools and templates are available. And I actually just finalized some of those tools and templates earlier this week. We have them in a little bit of a haphazard way, so I've hopefully organized them in a more cohesive way if it makes sense and is organized. So those are the objectives. Moving on to what's new and what's changed. So we'll go through the changed aspects first, and then the new aspects. So full-time executive director has just been slightly tweaked. We, in TQS 1.0, said that the ED was good for executing on the core functions, and this really pertains to when we dealt with the strategic plan. If you remember our strategic plan webinar that we had a couple of months ago, we talked that the strategic planning aspects haven't really changed, or aren't new, of course, but have only changed really in this idea of core functions. And now we're kind of really focusing more on staff development. So it's not, it kind of coincides with that shift in language from the strategic plan. So business standards, executive director performance review, which is business standard 6.6, and the staff performance reviews, which is business standard 6.7, now include competencies and accomplishing goals as opposed to, again, these core functions. And the focus is really on action, and another key focus point is really the professional development aspect. And that's something that I think old templates might have not included that professional development aspect, and now we have included it in what we offer to make sure that you, as an ED, are going through professional development, but also that you highly encourage staff, whether that's a program manager, site coordinator, or really anyone in between, to continue with that professional development. And then brand new is Business Standard 6.2, which is staff hiring. So this is really more about formalizing the process. If you were with us at our webinar last month, which was about the personnel policies and volunteer policies and the screening procedures, you will remember that screening procedures, Business Standard 3.7, is now broken out. It used to be a part of a standard, but we've really separated it out. And so here again with staff hiring, we've taken the staff hiring things that you were probably doing, but we've broken it out to its own standard. And it really formalizes the process from start to finish. So we'll get more into that as we go through the specificities. So that's what's changed and what's new. So let's go right into the review of personnel management standards. Again, 6.1 is the full-time executive director. So what do you have to upload to Box and how often? So you just have to upload it once for reaccreditation purposes. And what is that one-time upload? It's the signed letter of employment from the affiliate board and the job description that outlines specific responsibilities. A couple of things. This letter must be signed. I've seen some things that are uploaded that are not signed, and that actually the signed aspect is part of the indicator. So please make sure that the copy that you're uploading is the signed copy. Another thing is just some things to note. Again, we've always required that executive directors will be full-time, but I think what we're getting more to the intent of is, you can have an executive director say that he or she is full-time, but we really need that executive director to demonstrate that they are spending time raising money, spending time on, the business aspect of running a nonprofit. And we're now shifting, I think in the past, some EDs were doing kind of both the student supports and the business standards, and now we're really shifting to ensure that what full-time means is that you're really focused on running the nonprofit and leading your great site coordinators and program managers up to doing the student support aspects. And then lastly, just note that if you are an ED that's paid by a third party, your documentation will differ a little bit in that you need to just upload, instead of that signed letter from your board, you will need to upload the letter. Usually it's from a school district, let's say, for example, as the third-party entity. So you would upload the agreement between the ED and the school board, the school district. And that would take care of that aspect of the indicator there. So that's all for that one. For staff hiring, so again, because this is new, we'll go over it a little bit more detail. So what you have to upload is, again, just once for reaccreditation. What is it there to upload? So sample job descriptions for staff. We leave this quite flexible. So we've had some questions. Is it all staff? Is it just one? Some affiliates only have one site coordinator and an executive director, and of course we would expect that the site coordinator job description would be uploaded. But if you're a larger affiliate, you could really, it's kind of up to you if you want to upload the site coordinator job description as well as some other job descriptions, that's fine, but at that minimum, the site coordinator job description. The hiring offer letter, and then if applicable, again, this idea that if the site coordinator is paid by a third-party vendor, that they would upload that document instead, in addition to. And then finally, just things to look for. Again, we're really wanting to formalize the hiring process at every step. So from the job postings to the hire letters to the offer letters, we're just trying to give you a little bit more flexibility with this, but also wanting to ensure that we encompass all of the aspects of staff hiring. So that is two. For 6.6, the Executive Director Performance Review, This must be done once every year, and what is uploaded is a blank copy of the Executive Director Evaluation Form and the board minutes showing the Executive Director was evaluated in the last year. So I've seen where we've actually received the actual copy, and that's fine, but just note that we are not prying into how you as an ED were reviewed. A blank copy is acceptable, and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable by feeling like they need to upload the actual evaluation. A blank one is fine. Again, make sure that that blank copy includes the professional development goals, because that's something that we see is sometimes missing. And with the board minutes, we have seen that, affiliates will have the blank copy, and that's great, but there's no board minute showing that the staff was reviewed, that the ED was reviewed. Even if the ED might have been reviewed, it's just not in the minutes. So that's just an easy thing. Just make sure you're recording those minutes and that the evaluation goes in the board.
We just have a clarifying question here on that, Julie. And so the question comes as if the executive board is the one who's completing the evaluation, will executive minutes be acceptable? So I believe the interpretation of that is that the executive committee is the one kind of doing that process.
I will have to get back to you on that, so I'll flag that. What I believe we've had done in the past is the executive committee can review the ED, but should report out to the board. But is Laura Van Dusen on the line? Yes, Laura, can you clarify?
I am. Yes, typically we'd expect to see it in the full board minutes, but I do think that's a good point. If your executive committee is taking minutes and they note that and you submit those as well, I think that is something we should flag for further discussion. Just typically what we've run into is you don't have those kind of minutes from like an executive committee meeting. Typically that just occurs in what we see at the board, the full board meetings. So let's flag that and get back to you for sure, but I think that's a really interesting question.
Great. Thanks, Laura. Thank you. And yes, and I already said, remember you don't actually need to include a review. You can include a copy. So that's great. And we'll move on to the last standard before we stop and we can open it up for other questions, because I think it's our stopping point. So lastly, the Business Standard 6.7 staff performance reviews. So again, once per year. So uploaded to Box is an organizational chart and a blank copy of the staff evaluation, again blank, and documentation that staff were evaluated in the past year. And for that documentation, we actually will be including in the FY 2018 folders an Excel document that I think will make it a little bit easier for affiliates to record that information. However, that documentation is also currently, just as of Monday, on the NRC. So if you're not going through reaccreditation in 2018 and want to get a jump on reaccreditation 2019, you can download it from the NRC, and I will point that out later when I do the demo. And again, just remember here, again, professional development goals and the elements around skills and competencies that we are really leaving up to the affiliate to decide what's best for the affiliate on a local level, and that's what you would include then in that review. So we're going to, I think, stop for questions if there are any. I'll just hold here.
So as a reminder, folks, you can ask questions two ways, one of which is by using the raise your hand function in the participants box on your WebEx computer platform. Feel free to just go ahead and raise your hand there and I will unmute you so that you can ask your question out loud. You can also join into the conversation by chatting a question into the host in the chat box or to the entire group in the chat box, and we'll bring that up. Great, so we do have a question that just popped up here. So where exactly are we needing to upload the documentation?
For FY18, you will, in November, is when we're opening, when we have opening at box.com. And similar to your accreditation or reaccreditation in the past, there will be a specific folder structure that if you are going through reaccreditation in 2018, do not worry, we will actually have a webinar to discuss the specificities of that folder structure, and it will all be in that folder structure that you would just upload to Box. Now, if you're concerned, you want to get a head start, that's great. We love that. We would just ask you, and you have access to Box right now, we would just ask you that you create a folder of your own called maybe Reaccreditation 2018. You upload documents, and then when we officially open Box in November, you can just move those documents over. So we definitely don't want to stop you from already doing some reaccreditation work, and it's just that we are trying to, we always are doing evaluations on ourselves on how to make Box better and easier for our affiliates, and we're still going through that, which is why we've committed to the November date and no earlier. I'll just wait another 30 seconds. Of course, there will be time for questions at the end as well. All right, well, we'll just continue on then to our next section, which is just going through some general reaccreditation tips. And what I'll do is I'll go through these as well as the documentation that I have for tools, guides, templates, etc., and then I will do a demo. So if you're like, oh, I really like that tool, I don't know where it is, don't worry, I'll show you in real time. So, okay, general reaccreditation tips. So again, this is all, just pretend it's November, December, and you have your Box.com folder, and you've been on the webinar, etc. And so there's guides that will be in each folder, and then webinars, like I mentioned, introducing Box.com, and that will be finalized around November of 2017. I would also just suggest do not wait until the last day to upload for reaccreditation 2018. The due date is tentatively scheduled for June 1st of 2018, and thus, please, on May 31st, don't be trying to upload all your documentation. Do it as soon as you get that board minutes approved, upload them to Box. As soon as you write that policy and get it approved, upload it to Box. Again, we just ask that you use clear naming conventions. So, if this is your AOP or, your site coordinator job description, that you label it CS of Honolulu site coordinator job description. And then, of course, we here on the Standards and Accountability team are always available for questions on the new, what we dubbed the TQS 2.0 standards, but we also have lots of resources on the National Resource Center that we lovingly call the NRC. The password is Empower. There's actually a slide later on that we can walk through a little later. But for sure, feel free to reach out in the various medias to contact us about questions. So, resources. Doing a pitch here for Compass. So Compass is this new tool, and why is that important? It's important because it actually shifted where nonprofit operations is. So Compass, you can see there in the middle of the second row, and that shifted nonprofit operations to the third row on the left-hand column. And this is where you'll find all the tools for the staff hiring as well as ED hiring and staff performance reviews. But you should check out Compass if you haven't already, and then just know that nonprofit operations isn't in the same spot. So, all right, so some resources. So we have 2 web pages that we offer some templates. So you can see there's a blue avocado executive director evaluation survey form that it's definitely very thorough. I would just recommend that you make sure, I don't know how clear I would add a professional development section if you decide to use that form. However, the rest of the form is great. And so that's one way that you can do it. We also have lots of outside resources. I would highly recommend using Nonprofit Risk Management Center as an affiliate, you actually get free access, and they not only have available policy, they help you write policies actually, but they're also very responsive, and they offer a lot of newsletters, webinars, just tons of resources on everything under the sun that helps nonprofits be better at managing their risk. So those are just a couple of examples there that I have up on the webinar for you. So again, just my pitch of the Nonprofit Risk Management Center, and we'll kind of walk through some of these a little later. And then, of course, we do have some Word documents that you can download as well. There are samples of the site coordinator job descriptions, and then the offer letter. And we've made it pretty simple, and you would just plug and chug with the yellow for the offer letter. You would put your name and the proper name of who you're hiring, and all the details, et cetera. And as I mentioned, resource navigation, if you have a question about the NRC and you can't find something, we have these fabulous people on our staff called resource navigators, and you can email them at resourcenavigators@cisnet.org, and they will help you. And so that's if you're specifically looking for something on the NRC. If, of course, you have any questions pertaining to TQS or reaccreditation, my contact information is at the end, and hopefully you all know who I am, so we will be good to go. And as I mentioned, you can find all the webinars that we've done. This is the 7th in our series, and this will be posted shortly on the NRC. And these can be found under the accreditation process and standards, affiliate standards of the NRC. And you can see all the previous ones from February on and watch them at your leisure. All right, so I think I will go ahead and do the demo, and then I'll wrap up with questions. So I just need to share my screen. And here we are. Okay, so when you log into the NRC, you can see it looks like this, and as I mentioned, Compass is here. And for those who don't know what Compass is, because I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, it's kind of a one-stop shop for looking for partnerships for similar programs that another affiliate might be doing somewhere else, that you can kind of, see how they're doing it, and again, partnerships and opportunities. So it's a great research tool. So nonprofit operations. So when you click on nonprofit operations, it looks like this. Sorry for the scrolling. And these standards that we're talking about today, the personnel management standards, are toward the bottom. And we have two what we call child pages, so full-time executive director and performance review, and staff hiring and performance review. So if you click on either of those, it'll come up to a separate page. So for the full-time executive director, we again always have the policy at the top, so you don't have to always consult your standards, though I'm sure you all did your pre-reading, so you know it by heart. And then, of course, we have our resources. A lot of these are from Nonprofit Risk Management Center. There are some additional key questions, evaluating CEO performance. You might want to share this with your board. We also have some that's actually for the next one. But there's several things to look at. And then the blue avocado sample, which is the one that I referenced in the slides of the webinar. This actually also takes you to the staff hiring page if you click on that. So that's the same, it's the same page. But the staff hiring page then has tons of resources. A couple of things just to point out. There's actually this great screening procedures article that I thought was really wonderful and pertained. I didn't find it until just a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't include it in last month's webinar when we talked about screening procedures. But I definitely would recommend checking this out for your screening procedures, which is Business Standard 3.7, as well as just, the hiring process. And then we also have a couple of articles, on managing different generational differences. So we actually at National just had a discussion, what we call a lunch, lunch bunch, where we just kind of look at articles of some certain topic, and this month was about managing and interacting with different generations at work. And so there's 2 of the articles that we discussed located in the staff hiring for you. The other one is Employers Don't Treat Gen Z Like Millennials. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, there's several samples. So again, that job description, the offer letter, the evaluation template, and the tracker. And that tracker is just for you to use. It's an Excel sheet just to say when they were evaluated. And I do have that example of the job description right here. And that's just strictly from that downloaded section at the bottom of the staff hiring and performance reviews page. All right, so do we have any questions? Oh, I'd also highly recommend that you check out some of these webinars. You just have to, like I said, it's a free service because you're affiliated with the National CIS. You get free access to this, but you do have to create a login. And if you're having trouble creating a login, Kay, who works at Nonprofit Risk Management Center, is really helpful and responsive, and you can email her and she will get you right in. But to view the webinars, you have to be logged in, and so I would just highly recommend that you do that. There's lots of interesting hiring, onboarding, performance management, and about relationships between supervisors and employees there. So. Okay, so do we have any other questions? Otherwise, I'll just wait another 30 seconds for questions. And then if there aren't, of course, feel free to, if things come up in the interim, feel free to contact me at dennisj@biznet.org. And then lastly, I just would like to thank everybody for participating in these 7 webinars. Those are my balloons. They kind of look sad, but they're really happy balloons because we just want to thank you for your participation over the past several months. We've been doing these since February. And also just know that if there's ever something that you would like a webinar on or that you want us on the Standards and Accountability team to address in a larger format, we're happy to do that, and we're always taking suggestions. So if you are unsure about some other standard and think that a lot of other affiliates are unsure as well, we'd be happy to put together a webinar for that. So you can just let us know by emailing us or reaching out on Yammer or the NRC. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm happy to give you another 30 minutes back, and I hope that you found that this webinar was informative. Again, you're probably doing a lot of these standards already since there isn't too much change involved in these as opposed to some of the other standards that we've come across. But I just know that everyone will hopefully be really prepared for 2018 reaccreditation, and I thank you for joining. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.